Hello, welcome to the Record Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports' Ryan McDonald and Michael Gannon. Guys, how is it going?
I don't know about you, Mick, but I'm absolutely delighted. The transfer window slams shut. It never just closes, does it? Slams shut.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled to bits. I'm a bit very much weary after a month of mayhem. I'm quite glad that it's finally over.
It did feel like it was never ending.
Well, it's still not ended because Celtic are still trying to sign players after it's shut yet again. So the transfer window is still jammed slightly ajar for Celtic. Given this season, none of it's been straightforward. It's not going to be straightforward again, it looks like. So there's still business that might be done, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point in the podcast.
I was going to say we will get to that, but one man who will be absolutely delighted the window's shut as well, or ajar, is Martin O'Neill probably. Finished his signing with 5 players in January. You can see them on your screen now if you're watching. I guess basically my question is just, how would you rate Celtic's window?
Well, for me, just how we joke to break us into the podcast. Fair play to the Celtic board, because it seems as if they've really bought into the not another penny campaign.
Spent more appealing Austin Trusty's red card.
A joke as well. Now, look, in a serious note, I've been on this podcast and Hotline Live, and I've been, I think, severely critical of the board this season. I believe there needs to be a total restructuring from top to bottom, and I think that's clear. What I would say is, I don't think the January business has eased any tension between the board and the fans, right? But I am pretty much against the grain from what I've heard and what I've read on Twitter and podcasts, etc. I actually think it's smart business what they've done in this January transfer window, and I'll tell you why. Had Celtic splashed out millions of pounds, right, on Aduma, Mvuka and what's the other boy's name? Sorry, Aduma. Sorry. Yeah, I think fans would be pretty content if they splashed out £10 million combined, for example. I think the fans would have been pretty content. But they've got them on loan and they've got an option to buy, right? So these two guys have struggled. There's no doubt about it. They're needing to relaunch their career. They need somebody to kickstart their career, and Celtic are giving them that platform. But there's absolutely no guarantees that they're going to be a success. You know, there's no guarantees that they're going to fit into Martin O'Neill's system, and there's no guarantees they're going to fit into the next manager's system. So I think Celtic have made a lot of mistakes over the years in the transfer market. They've invested in club signings, and look what's happened with them. Shin Yamada and Hayato Inamura have been farmed out after less than 6 months at the club. And I'm actually a fan of if you're going to spend big, the try before you buy strategy. I think it's worked well for Jota, Vickers, even Adam Eder to extent. If Celtic are going to spend big, I think it's a wise strategy. I think the biggest gripe is the fact that they've left it again until the dying hours to fill key positions. I think that's what will annoy Celtic fans probably the most. Is they never seem to learn from this. It's always the final hours. It's always a bit of a circus in deadline day. And even though the transfer window is jarred shut, as Mick correctly says, they're still in the market for signings, albeit the free agent market. So the business hasn't completely been conducted. But for me, I think I don't have too many complaints with Celtic loaning the 5 players in. As I say, I think it does make sense to an extent. But my biggest criticism of this window is that the signings weren't brought in earlier. And I think everybody had circled that trip to Tynecastle. It was the game where this is an opportunity for Celtic to properly drag themselves back into the title race. And they only had a couple of signings in the door for them. And I think that was a missed opportunity for them. So overall, I think it was a decent January transfer window. You look at it, Arojo is definitely an upgrade on Anthony Ralston. Chavinkara is obviously an upgrade on Johnny Kenny as well. So they're the 2 early signings that have made instant impacts. and obviously we're going to find out what's going to happen with the three deadline signings as well. So I think ultimately, in my view, Celtic have come out of the window stronger than they came in, and that's always got to be the aim.
What do you think, Mick?
Yeah, I think, the question is, are Celtic stronger now than they were on January the 1st? And I think you've got to say yes. The next question is, are they strong enough? And we can't answer that yet because we don't know. So far, I think Arojo and Chanchara have looked the part, and Neil is really going to be solid additions. The three that arrived on deadline day, we just don't know. You look at their previous body of work. Both of them are the two main signings. I mean, when you Benjamin Arthur, who I think will be a kind of a backup role initially. He's not playing an awful lot of first team football, but he seems to have a decent enough reputation as a young player. A lot to chuck him into a title race. I think you maybe back up. I think Martin O'Neill likes trusty and Scales anyway, so I don't see that getting split up anytime soon unless there's an injury or a suspension. The other two is a big question mark. Adamu, I think if Celtic signed him from Salzburg, they want to watch. The player at Salzburg who scored against Bayern Munich in Champions League, who was young and strong and looked apart, very much so. The player at Freiburg, not so much, because he's not done much there. First season, all right at times. This season, not great. Mavuka, again, I've got questions. I mean, again, he did quite well at Bodo Glimt. I think he came off the bench against Celtic and those ties a couple of years ago against Hans Postle's team. Hasn't really done much at Lorient. That's the one I think looks like a kind of but down the list. I mean, obviously, Celtic went for Tabi at the start of the window, medical issues, then Sunderland, that one. They went for Gedjemis in Italy. I think that was the one that Martin O'Neill really fancied and thought he was going to go over the line. Turned out the boy done a bit of a U-turn at the last minute. And then into Redzik, who I think was always destined for Salzburg. Reading between the lines, it looked like they were trying to smoke that deal out along the way. So he's not the first choice. He's down the list. He's not got form. I've got to admit, if it's a kind of sign, if he went on loan to Aberdeen or Hibs, it wouldn't have surprised me, that kind of thing. To Celtic, big responsibility, because is he going to be the one to replace Yang on the right or be his backup? If he's his backup, then that's you've got to think that's a position Celtic had to kind of tool up. And Yang's done okay. I don't think Yang's actually a natural right winger, to be honest with you. I think he's more comfortable on the left. So I think that's a question mark. Up top, I think Celtic look better equipped now. Any actual back from injury as well. So listen, you don't always get what you want in a window. That's the way it goes. And I agree with Ryan about the try before you buy thing, especially with options to buy, because I think it was straight loan deals. If you got a team, Celtic now get 6 loan players, and that's usually a concern because if things go wrong, loan players, I'm not saying across the board, but they can tend to think, well, I'm not here next year. I don't need to worry about the fallout, really. But I mean, 4 of the 6 guys have got this option to buy in the summer. It gives them a bit of an incentive to either win a deal at Celtic or put themselves in the shop window. So they've got motivation for the last part of the season for multiple reasons, whether it's at Celtic or beyond. So I don't mind that so much. I think that's a good idea. So they've got a great opportunity to go and show what they can do. I think you've seen it already with Chanchara. Looks as though he's a hungry player, wants to make an impression. So I think looks as though that's a decent move. Arojo, I think, is going to be a wee bit of a leap for Celtic to try and turn that one. He's been terrific, but I think he's on big money at Bournemouth and he's got 3 years left in his deal. Might be a bit of a pipe dream, that one, I think, unfortunately for Celtic.
They paid a lot for him as well, Bournemouth, didn't they?
Paid a lot. He's in a long term. I mean, he signed about a 5-year deal when he signed, and he's on decent. He'll be on very decent money.
Aye.
I think that one is not. But Celtic now, listen, I think they're facing the biggest rebuild in history in the summer. That's for sure. The can has been well and truly kicked down the street for this one, and it just remains to be seen now if they're strong enough to go and kick on. They're 14 games to go in the league. They're going to have to at least not lose to Rangers and Hearts in the next 2 games against them. probably need to win them, and then win probably 10, 11 out of the next 12, the other 12 games. So they're going to have to really put the foot down and hit the ground running, these guys. It's a big ask if they can pull it off, but very much jury's still out. I mean, the window, if it goes wrong, it'll be viewed as another disastrous window on top of the summer, which was a catastrophe window, really. I think at the moment, on paper, it looks all right. It looks okay. But we'll have to wait and see.
See, just going back to the Benjamin Arthur one, guys, the centre back that come in. I don't really get it. I mean, you mentioned, Mick, he's obviously going to come in, I think, as cover, as backup. But why not just keep Stephen Welsh then? Or Simpson Pusey, who, by all accounts, is doing really well at Cologne now. He was in Bundesliga Team of the Week a couple of times last month. I mean, I just don't really get it.
I think with the Stephen Welsh one, I think Celtic have managed his situation pretty poorly, to be honest, over the last few years. You know, he's had opportunities. I think he's had interest from Serie A and Belgium as well. Who obviously spent time out on loan last season. He's 25 now, Dan. So I think he's at the age now where he really needs to be playing. He was outstanding in the first half of the season on loan at Motherwell. Really became a key player for Big Jens at Fir Park. And he's, as I said, he's 25 years old, so he must be desperate for game time. And I don't think it's really fair for his development to be sitting on the bench or, do you know what, at times even in the stands at Celtic Park watching on. So I think Martin O'Neill recognised that, and he was keen to get him back out on loan. And I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen Welsh has played his last game for Celtic now. I don't think Motherwell will be able to afford his wages come the end of the season, but I can see him moving on to perhaps another European team, maybe in Belgium or somewhere in that region.
It's a financial move, isn't it? Because he goes there, he's in the shop window for 6 months or 5 months. He's not going to be on the shop window for Celtic, because back in the summer, he does another good end to the season. That's a solid season at Motherwell. They might get £1 million from him. If he doesn't, if he's sitting in the stand, his value is dropping at a stone. He gets summer, he's not going to get that. Not going to get that kind of fee.
I think the Benjamin Arthur as well. It's very much like you said, Dan. It's very much like a like for like replacement with Jemai Simpson Pusey. You know, they've got similar backgrounds. I think Arthur's a England under 20 international. I think he was named Brentford's under 21s player of the year last season as well. He's made a handful of appearances for Brentford this season. I think he was recently signed a long-term deal. So he's obviously a player with potential and a lot of development in him. But you know, I don't think you'll probably see him much in a Celtic jersey if I'm being honest. I think that we'll find out if Dane Murray's ahead of him in the pecking order in the coming weeks. But obviously Celtic are light in that defensive department with Cameron Carter-Vickers injured as well for the remainder of the season. So yeah, I think if they were going to bring in a central defender, I must admit I wasn't surprised when the news emerged last night that it was going to be a player of kind of Benjamin Arthur's ilk, you know, a young player who will probably just be relish any kind of minutes that he gets at Celtic, and it's another it's another opportunity for him to progress his own career. I think ideally Celtic would have liked a signing like, you know, Maurice Jens. You guys will remember big Maurice Jens joining. I think it was under Ange Postecoglou in 22-23.
Good player.
I think he played all 6 Champions League group stage games and he was decent. So I think perhaps I think Celtic are going to strengthen their centre back positions at the end of the season. As Mick says, there's going to be a monumental rebuild. So I think you will get, you know, a genuine first team starter coming in at centre back. But for now, I think Benjamin Arthur kind of does the job as a stopgap signing. I think domestically, Liam Scales gets a lot of criticism, but you know, I watch him week in and week out. I think aside from that blip where he was played out of position under Wilfred Nancy, I think Liam Scales has been arguably Celtic's best player this season. And I think Austin Trussdale, certainly in Europe, Austin Truss has been imperious at times, I think, in that Bologna game. But Austin Truss and him seem to have a decent partnership at the back, so I don't think there's too much to worry about there. So I think, in all honesty, my view is the Benjamin Arthur signing it just makes sense.
You mentioned at the top of the show, Mick, that obviously the window's ajar, and the one man who's been mentioned a lot today is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Now, I know you were at Martin O'Neill's press conference earlier on today. He did mention him, didn't he?
Yeah, he was quite honest. He said he spoke to him about the possibility of coming to Celtic. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that need to happen to pull this one off. But he's asked the question. I mean, listen, this is a guy, undoubted pedigree, Liverpool, Arsenal. He's out in obviously in Turkey with Besiktas. I think he mucked around a wee bit out there. They went through the usual Turkish league. They went through about 10 managers in a season. He's not played since May last year.
Yeah,
a long time at the game, but he's been training the last few months with Arsenal. Listen, there's been a bit of talk about Arsenal potentially offering him a short-term deal as well. They've got a few injuries in the middle of the park, so there's a wee bit of talk about that. I think Martin thought he'd chance his arm and asked the question, and it didn't get a custard pie. He got a kind of encouraging noises from Oxlade-Chamberlain. It turns out he's quite pally with Joe Hart. He knows what Celtic all about. He knows the kind of appeal of coming up here and having a bit of fun, maybe trying for win a trophy. But there's different hurdles. I mean, I said if Arsenal offer a deal, there's no contest really. It's not going to be a choice. That's what it'll be. I mean, he's London based. He's got a newborn baby. Well, his partner has. He didn't do it. I think he pulled the jackets. So whether or not he'd be keen to move to Scotland at this point in time is a bit of a question as well. But listen, Celtic have asked the question, and I think if he's fit and hungry, I think it'd be a heck of an addition. Have that experience in the team and a cool head and ability as well. Listen, the only thing is, I think a lot of Celtic fans are kind of haunted by the list of big name arrivals late in the career who have been completely honking.
Looking at you, Freddie Ljungberg.
I mean, I don't think Ian Wright particularly did great, didn't he? Under the Joe Vengler season, he was in the dressing room that night when the boots were flying in Inverness Valley, wasn't he?
Right.
There's been a few through the years, hasn't there? Carlton Cole wasn't so hot, was he?
Even Roy Keane. I mean,
Roy Keane,
amazing player.
Roy Keane, I think, didn't leave with a winner's medal, didn't he? Albeit he was pretty much finished by that point. He missed himself. He was done by that point. So there's been a few kind of big name guys who have Stefan Henchov.
Aye, that's right. Aye,
that one as well.
Aye.
I asked him the other week. That was just came in my head. As I kind of Celtic signed 2 Premier League players that summer. January.
Michael Gray is another one, wasn't it?
But Henchov arrived the same time as Robbie Keane. I think it was that season. Was it that season?
Bellamy.
Was it Bellamy? No, it's Bellamy. It's Martin O'Neill signed him. It was Bellamy and Henchov. That's true. Aye, that's true. And Henchov wasn't very great. Wasn't very good. I think it was about 5 games. There's been a litany of kind of big English Premier League big names that have trapped late in their careers and haven't really done very well. So I think some people maybe spoke by that. But Oxlade-Chamberlain's a guy who's got a fantastic career. Nearly 40 caps for England or something like that.
Still only 32.
He is only 32. So you think he's got something to offer. But talking about offers, I think there'll be offers for him. And I think if an offer came up somewhere down the kind of England South Coast in the Championship, even at that level, you might think that might kind of tempt him. Just in fact, he's down there. Yeah. But listen, I mean, if secret agent Joe Hart's on the case, stating what he could achieve up at Celtic, then you never know. So I wouldn't completely write it off. I think there's hurdles that need to be crossed, but I wouldn't completely dismiss it out of hand. And Martin's working his charm on him, that's for sure. He's doing his best.
One guy that almost became a Premier League player, guys, was Arne Engels. I need to get your take on this because that was one of the headlines of Deadline Day. Nottingham Forest, I think it was 3 bids in the end that they launched for Arne Engels, culminating in £25 million. I mean, just on the face of it, to give my tuppence worth for what it's worth, £25 million, a lot of money for Arne Engels. A lot of people would say, look, sell him, take it. The one thing I'd say, as a fan, what's the point in taking it if they're not going to reinvest it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. How did you guys see it?
I mean, I look at it 2 ways. I think we kind of discussed it before we came on the pod, Dan. For me, number one, it kind of proves that Celtic's model and structure is dysfunctional. You know, that's a record equal in sum for a player who hasn't exactly lit up Scottish football. You know, £25 million is how much Jota and Kieran Tierney were sold for in the past. I think the only fee that eclipses that is Matt O'Reilly when he left for Brighton last season. So for me, if Celtic had a succession plan, Engels would probably have been sold. I think £25 million is the ceiling you're going to get for him as well. I'm unconvinced that there's going to be any kind of monster bids of that will come in the summer. I think that Forest were probably scrambling around in the last couple of days. Sean Dyche admitted he was desperate to sign a midfielder. Engels obviously identified as the man he wanted, and perhaps he pushed the boat out a bit further to try and convince Celtic to sell, and ultimately they stood firm. So that's one way that I look at it. The second way I look at it is the board have been bashed for asset stripping and leaving the team short over the last few years, and now they've put the football department ahead of the finance department. So I think they deserve credit for that. You know, they could have sold, like you said there, Dan. They could have sold Arne Engels. They could have banked the £25 million, and then it might not have been reinvested. You know, they could have sold him without signing the replacement like they did with Adam Ida and Kyogo. And we all know what happened in those scenarios. So for me, overall, my opinion is if they did have a succession plan, he would have been sold. They clearly weren't confident that they would be able to sign a replacement in time. I think had the bid come in maybe 3 or 4 weeks earlier, or even at the start of the window, I think Engels probably would have been sold. And they would have reinvested it in other areas of the park, and obviously find another midfielder. So that's kind of my view on it. I think with it coming so late in the window, I think, to be honest, Martin O'Neill made it clear as well that he wasn't for sale. You know, we remember the saga with Adam Ida at the end of the summer window. Rodgers said he wouldn't be sold until the replacement was signed. He was sold, and the replacement wasn't signed until after deadline day when it was Kelechi Iheanacho, and Rodgers had to pull in a favour. So if Celtic were to do that again with Martin O'Neill, then yeah, I think there would have been issues. So for me, I think I totally understand why he's still here. I'm just unconvinced that Celtic are going to be able to command that similar sort of fee for Engels come the summer. I think 2 years was probably the plan for Engels at Celtic. You know, when players come from the Bundesliga, they will use, or you know, leagues of that calibre, will use Celtic probably as a stepping stone to go on and play in the Premier League. That's probably Engels' plan. So I do think he will move on in the summer, but I think if Celtic were to sell him now without signing their replacement, they'd clearly be weaker. So overall, I think it's the right decision to keep him.
It's no telling, Mick, though, how Arne Engels is going to react to this news. I mean, our colleague, transfer guru Scott Burns, said on last night's Hotline Live that his information is that Arne Engels was absolutely furious that the bids were turned down. It's just a mess. I mean, as Ryan kind of hinted at, an organised club in 2026, I know it's deadline day, but they would have 2 or 3 alternatives to just push the button on, to go out and go, look, need to pay a bit over the odds, but XYZ player. Celtic didn't have that.
Yeah, this is the whole point. I mean, Celtic are the player trading model. You have to trade the players. I mean, and you can say, oh, it was late in the window. Well, that's when the big money comes in. That's when Celtic have made big money on Moussa Dembele. They had Edward in the building already. They made that's when money came in for late in the window for Kyogo. The clubs that are panicking and will spend big money. That's when you maximise your value for these players. So a bid coming in for one of your biggest assets on the deadline day should not come as a surprise. But Celtic, this is the problem they've got because of the kind of the structural problems they've had in recruitment. They're unable to cash in at the right time. They should have cashed in Dyson Maeda towards the end of the window in August, but they couldn't because they had no strikers lined up to come in. And they already signed 2 wingers to cover Dyson Maeda to sell him. Then they couldn't sell him because they didn't have a striker lined up. So the whole system has fallen down. The problem they've got as well is, I mean, listen, Martin O'Neill said today that Engels is fine. He's not in a huff. Fine. This is a guy who's now been denied at least 3 times his salary. So he's young enough that he's not going to might not get a huff in the short term because he might think, well, the chance of coming again, right? But Dyson Maeda at 28, chance to treble his wages. He will have been fizzing. I mean, Mrs. Maeda will not have been happy. She was on Rightmove looking at houses in Germany. And this is the reality. We saw them down in England last night, one of the Crystal Palace broke down, and the player's wife was on Instagram moaning about she was house hunting and all that stuff. This is life. This is the guys' livelihoods. So, and you buy these players, and the promise is you come to Celtic, try and win things, hopefully win things. We'll develop you, and we'll sell you when the time comes round. A £25 million bid. If you'd said when Celtic signed Arne Engels for £11 million 18 months ago, 18 months to a bid for that coming in, that is the model working. Not being able to sell him because you haven't got any backup plans or anything in the bill. Listen, a player should be signed in midfield this window for the summer to allow them to sell in the summer.
Yeah,
this is how the wheels start. This is what clubs that are doing properly. Teams like your Brightons and your Brentfords and your Michelins and your Bruges and all that stuff. They have these guys in the door so they can sell these assets. This is how you do it. You buy in the next £3 or £4 million player who's already in the door so you can sell the guy. And so they have done it previously. They've run aground, whether that's under the Tisdale reign or whatever. But this whole system has ground to a halt, and they're now having to keep players that should be getting sold. Hatate should have been sold at the right time. Maida should have been sold. Yang was a bags or pack, should have been sold. And now Arne Engels, that kind of money is too big to be sniffed at. Because like I think Ryan said there now, I'm not sure that kind of money is going to come in again for him. I could be wrong. I think he will make. I think Celtic might make 18, 20 million pound on him. So I think he is equipped to play at a high level, probably more so than he's equipped to play in Scotland. To be fair, yeah. I think he struggles with the kind of wild and wacky blood and thunder nature of Scotland sometimes. There's certain games when he just kind of goes into hiding a wee bit when he gets a bit wild. But I can see him operating at that level. I don't think he's the most creative, but he's got he got an engine. He's 6 foot. He plays for Belgium. Ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of clubs. So yeah, they will make money on him. But if Celtic had something lined up, they could take the money, reinvest it in the next one. And by the way, Celtic have also got, they've still got Paulo Bernardo, Rio Hatate, Luke McCown, and Cal McGregor in there. McGregor, Hatate and Bernardo are going to need to step up at some point this season. Hatate not so much. At times he's been okay. Bernardo has been very poor this season, and that's been kind. Barely kicked the ball all season. Got to step up. Big money signing, by the way, having looked good on loan and come back, not been so much. Needs to get the kind of finger out at some point in the next few weeks. But Celtic should have be agile. What was it old Ange Postecoglou said? You need to be agile in the market so that when the chance comes to cash in, take it, reinvest, get another hungry player to do the same again. That's what drives success and keeps the recruitment model, the player trade model working. Unfortunately, with Celtic now, it's all kind of hit the buffers really, and it's all stop gaps and temporary patches and try to get through the summer. And then, by the way, listen, there's a title race to look forward to, but blimey, there's some work required this summer.
Oh man,
somebody who head of recruitment, stroke director of football, which isn't going to happen, by the way.
Chairman.
By the way, there's about 10 first-team players that are out of contract or loans are up. It's a major work required in the summer, and they really need to start it now, to be honest. But in the meantime, they need to try and go over the line of title race as well. So it's a lot going on, isn't it?
That's why. I wasn't going to mention this, but that's why, Mick, I could maybe, and I've got no insight. I've not heard anything. No one said anything, but that's why I could maybe see Martin O'Neill still being there next season, because there's so much to do. I mean, he could get it underway, get the ball rolling. Do you guys think that's at all likely or possible?
Martin's going to be 74 in about 3 weeks. He's 74 on the 1st of March. So, it's a lot to ask. I did the day you had the windows shut, and he looked pretty relieved. I don't blame him. He's working 24/7 for the whole month.
No.
It's a big ask. It's a big ask for Martin O'Neill.
I think he's already said he confessed that he probably wouldn't have the energy. I think he's putting all his energy into between now and the end of the season. I think to then ask him to go another season or potentially two, like you say, I think he's 74 in March. I think that's maybe just a bit of a step too far. Plus, we've been talking about the rebuild there. I think you need a manager who's going to be there for the next 2 to 3 seasons to oversee this, like Ange did when he came in. And yeah, I think that Celtic will go down. They're probably looking at a succession plan just now in terms of the next manager. And I think that's what they need to do. Martin O'Neill is that I think he's the only man that Celtic could have asked to save this season and be enough a chance of actually doing it. So he deserves a statue outside Celtic Park right now, let's be honest. But if he can somehow save this season and win a title, then it'll be, that's him nailed down as the second greatest manager in the club's history behind Jock Stein, without a shadow of a doubt. No arguments. But yeah, I think he's just the man for now, and next season it's going to take the club need to go in a different direction.
Just before we wrap up, guys, you can see on your screen if you're watching, Celtic's next 8 fixtures, taking them right through to the 1st of March. That game at Ibrox against Rangers. I mean, we kept saying, Mick, wait till the window's shut. Let's see how Celtic get on. I know you mentioned earlier in the podcast, you'd probably say they are stronger. But are they equipped to take care of these fixtures coming up?
Well, this is what we're going to find out. I mean, Aberdeen, and let's be honest, Celtic have a great record against Aberdeen. I mean, the cup final aside, obviously, they've been pretty rotten this season. Let's be honest. So they certainly need to go up there and get a result. They've got. This is a decent. Obviously you get the European ties in there now. But you think Aberdeen, Livy, Dundee, and Kilmarnock are all games that Celtic have to win.
Yeah.
There isn't any debate. They need to win those games. And Hibs and Rangers. If they can win the domestic games, including the cup, so the 4 league games in the cup tie, and then hitting Rangers marks the first at that point, it's an absolute must. They're 6 points behind Hearts right now. They don't show any signs of kind of tripping up. Although, no doubt I've said that, they'll probably slip up against St Mirren tonight. If you're watching this tomorrow, the folks ready to put the boot in. But I think still need to get the foot down. So these signings have to really get going straight away. They have to. But I think there's been some positive. I think the fact that there's new bodies in the build will help a lot of the players, because I think they look tired. I think they look a bit gassed. And it's no surprise that we're seeing the second half of games, Celtic have toiled. I thought they were very poor in the second half at Tynecastle. I thought they really struggled against Utrecht in the second half. Looked as though they'd done their tank in. And it's been a common kind of theme. You can go back to the Wilfred Nonset era, the second halves, because the way they played the second half, they fell apart. So they've looked a bit gassed. Martin Engels relied on the same 14, 15 guys mostly each week. So the new bodies will help that alone, give the guys a rest. But they're still going the same kind of burden on some of the. Your Callum McGregor's, your Kieran Tierney's. Sirachi coming back will help him, I'd imagine. Yeah. But Yang's been playing every week pretty much. So they need the new guys need to hit the run. Guys like Tinek need to find their form again. He's kind of went off the boil a bit after a good start. Balak Wisher, who knows? I don't think we'll see much of him. I don't think. I think his ship has sailed. But yeah, so there's still big questions to be asked. Excuse me. I think that this new signings are getting boys in the door for a start will help, but they need to be good.
I think what Celtic have been lacking is just game changers from the bench. You look back at, I think, Ange Postecoglou's bench compared to now. Night and day. I don't think, even since the start of the season, I don't think Celtic have really been able to call upon them that it's going to come on and make a difference. So now that they've brought in these January recruits that will beef up their options, gives Martin Neil different options for the bench, and I think that's what they've been crying out for. So, like Mick says, they've been kind of relying in pretty much the same starting 11 for the last 2 or 3 months. So, let's just see what comes of it. Pittodrie, like you say, has been a pretty happy hunting ground for Celtic over the last few years. I think it was the last visit, it was 2-0. It was a pretty straightforward afternoon for Celtic. It was that the day that Brendan Rodgers didn't wear his tie, and there was a national injury.
But to ask the question after the game, if it was significant, you built me on that. Welcome to Scottish football. Some of the stuff. So
I think obviously Aberdeen, like Mick says, Aberdeen are a pretty poor team at the minute. I think Aberdeen are one of the 2 teams that Wilfred Nancy managed to beat during his Celtic tenure as well. Aberdeen and Livingston, and both of them have new managers, and obviously Celtic are playing both of them in the coming weeks. So I think when you look at the fixture schedule, it's pretty kind to Celtic, and you compare it to Hearts and Rangers. Hearts and Rangers will be playing each other at Ibrox as well during that time. So I think, to be honest, it's 14 cup finals for Celtic, and they need to win every single one of them. I don't think there's any margin for error. And I think, if they can get through the next 4 league games, then it sets up for a titanic clash at Ibrox.
Yeah, and obviously they don't play Hearts till after the split now, don't they? Not? I mean, they've got Rangers obviously Ibrox. They need to get through that game unscathed, and not lose it. And then obviously Hearts will be after the split, which I guess will be back at Parkhead, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
yes,
should be.
We get Rangers and Hearts, both of them after the split, both at Celtic Park. Which you've got to think is a positive for Celtic. They can hang on in there, but they need. The concern is they have managed to get results. I mean, Martin Neal's domestic record's incredible, but by hook or by crook, there's been games you think, they're hanging on here by the skin of their teeth. I mean, look at the Falkirk away game and others as well, even at Hearts as well. But I just think that they need to get a head of steam now. The new guys need to give them energy and get a head of steam going right up to that Rangers game to give themselves a chance.
And I think just a final point as well, I think Brian Wilson was calling for unity a few months ago. The atmosphere at Celtic Park, Mick, you and I were at the Utrecht game, when Celtic stormed 3-0 ahead in a European game to progress to the knockout stages. You could have heard a pin drop. It was the quietest I've ever heard Celtic Park, especially on a European night in all my life. And I think at the weekend there against Falkirk, it was the first time I think I've seen pretty much the entire stadium kind of stand together in unity against the board. They were standing up and clapping in protest against the board. So I think there's a couple of easy wins for Celtic at the minute. I think the first one would be to let the Green Brigade back in to try and to lift the atmosphere around the place, because it's like a morgue at times. It can't really be an enjoyable match experience for fans. So if you can get the Green Brigade back in, get the atmosphere going again, then I think between now and the end of the season, I think there's got to be an amicable agreement between the Celtic fans collective and the board to pull in the same direction, put the kind of protest behind them, and try and come together and get Celtic over the line. I think that should be the plan for both parties, but it's easier said than done. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I know Martin Neal said that he'd be happily try to broker a peace deal between the two of them, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I think he's got bigger issues in his plate.
That's the thing. I mean, for all the drama and the mistakes and the kind of nonsense this season, it still could end up a really kind of memorable campaign. I mean, imagine Martin Neal lifting a Premiership title after all these years. I mean, it could be one of the all-timers. At this point in time, I think the odds are against that happening because of what we're saying. Winning 13 out of 15 games or 14 games, I'm not sure. We need to see these new guys. But it could be, an incredible finale and result. I mean, if Martin Neal's walking up the Celtic way with that trophy in his hand, that'd be like an all-time classical moment. So it's all there, and you say, the fans should find some way of getting the punters back on board, because the atmosphere has been pretty horrible at Celtic all season. So I don't know. The only thing I don't know if 3 loan signings and deadline day is going to appease anyone really.
I don't think so.
I don't think a club that's got 80 million quid in the bank or whatever and not spending any money in January. The optics. Listen, whether we all think that the team looks a bit stronger on paper anyway, but the optics of not spending. I've been behind in a title race, and not spending any money when there's money in the bank. It doesn't. It just, the perception isn't always the reality, but the perception is not great. Really, let's be honest. I mean, you can't sugarcoat that. But in the same thing, they have. There's fees involved for these loan guys, but not significant cash, really. So there will be questions asked about, because that'll be the bottom line. Celtic behind the title race. If they lose it, the question will be, how can you go into January behind the title race and not spend any money? Whether that's the reality or not, that's the question that will be asked, and that will be the kind of theme of it. But unless Martin Neal pulls it out of the hat and does something really special.
Well, whatever happens, guys, in the coming weeks, we'll be here on the Record Celtic podcast to chew over it all. But for today, I think that brings us to the end of the show. Mick, Ryan, it's always an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much for listening and watching at home, and we'll be back next week. Cheers.